It's important to understand what constitutes a balanced diet and how to make healthy food choices to avoid weight gain and prevent health complications. Joining us to discuss this is weekly contributor Charles Muhammad. How are you doing today, Brother Charles?
Fine, ma'am. Thanks for having me.
Wonderful, of course. Thank you for joining the show today. So, my first question for you is food deserts and rising prices makes it difficult to get good nutrition. Would you not agree?
Well, yes and no. That's a loaded question in the sense that there are food deserts, but we're in a plant based movement now. So access to better and healthy foods are right at your fingertips. Even if you're destitute or in poverty, you can get access to better foods. You can find food co-ops. You can, go apple picking. You could, visit Whole Foods, any place where better vegetables are available. But the problem here is that we have a poor understanding of what is a good and balanced diet. Now, this image here is from a cartoon called The Brave Little Tailor, in which we as children get to think that when a person eats something, just like Mickey Mouse is being eaten here, he's in the stomach and he's about to be dissolved into a liquid. But human biology is way, way more complicated than that. So when we understand what happens in the stomach, we would take better time to make better food choices and understand that there is a complex process that must occur. So it is better for us to try harder to get to better food so that this process can be played out. There is a compound that is called ATP. This is made from our body working hard with the food that it gives us to make energy for the body. Nutrients are, proteins are readily available in most foods. But to try to get energy from those foods so we could function properly, that is an extraneous process, as you've seen on the screen. It's not simple. So we have to make a better effort to get to better foods beyond these food deserts.
Yes, sir. I absolutely agree with that. But how do we know when enough is enough?
Well, when eating a diet, you certainly want to fill up. And that is a good question. When you know you have eaten enough, and that comes from what the Elijah Muhammad says in book number one, page 27. Some of us eat so often and so much at a time that it actually has a tendency to make us small and skinny because we never allow time for the previous meal to digest and distribute the vitamins and proteins in the proper places and throughout our bloodstream. So we have a problem of eating even high volume amounts of food, but they're empty calories. And so we have those of us who eat a lot and still remain skinny, and some of us who try to eat a cracker and a grape and seem to gain weight. So we must have a proper understanding of what types of foods that we can eat at a certain sitting and get the right amount of nutrients and not overeat. Because you can eat the same amount of calories. They're smaller portions with poorer food, empty calories, and then you have the larger portions, which is more healthy, and you get a better balanced diet. So we need to understand what does nutritional density constitute, and then we don't get this in school. I didn't know what a calorie was when I was in junior high school. A calorie is a measurement of heat, and the amount of heat that any type of food may have is what the body has to bring to break apart the molecules of the food. So even ice cream has calories, but ice cream is not hot from heat. Ice cream has to have calories to break apart the molecules of the food. So we need to understand what does nutritional density constitute. And then we need to understand what does overrepresentation constitute.
All right. So it looks as though Brother Charles Muhammad has gotten disconnected, but we were going over how to eat to live and how to make healthy food choices to avoid weight gain and prevent health complications. Brother Charles, can you hear me? All right. Hopefully, Brother Charles will be able to reconnect so we can finish this wonderful conversation. And we're talking about the book, How to Eat to Live. Okay, so we're going to pause for announcements from our sponsors. Afterwards, Tony Muhammad will be on to discuss Black and brown children being improperly classified as having learning disabilities. We'll be right back.
Be a part of the force that powers truth in journalism. Go to nnvnews.com/donate.
Worldwide, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Download the Final Call Radio app and take us everywhere. On your phone, on your computer, on your tablet, on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. You can also log on to finalcall.com and click the Listen Live button or finalcallradio.com. Final Call Radio, the official voice of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam.
Please share your thoughts with us in the comment section below. Follow us on social media at NNV News, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel at National Network View. I am Anissa Muhammad with NNVnews.com.
School districts have improperly classified Black and brown students as having learning disabilities, resulting in students being overrepresented and overidentified in special education.
20% of all K-12 students in New York City have been identified as having an IEP. There's a 2-to-1 ratio of boys to girls who are identified. Along racial lines, 31% of all Black students in New York City have an IEP. So that already indicates a sense of disproportionality if 31% of the Black students are being identified out of a pool of only 20% of total students. If boys are a 2-to-1 ratio, then you see that Black boys in particular are way more identified as needing special education services than any other group of students in New York City. The outcomes for Black male students who are in special ed are pretty grim. They're more likely to be subject for disciplinary referrals, experience chronic absenteeism, and they're also more likely to drop out of school, and then in turn also more likely to be involved with juvenile justice and adult correctional systems.
Joining us to discuss this is NNV contributor Tony Muhammad. Assalamu alaikum, Brother Tony. How are you doing today?
Islam, doing well, dear sister. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Thank you for asking.
All praise is due to Allah.
So we're going to jump into our first question. A recent article said that Black and Hispanic students in the Palo, Alto Unified School District are being improperly classified as having a learning disability and are overrepresented and overidentified in special education. What analysis was conducted to arrive at these conclusions? And what factors might account for improper placement of Black and brown students in special education?
Well, they arrived at the conclusions because the state investigated. And you have to understand that there was over 10% of the student population that was being labeled as being special education, if you will, or in need of special education intervention. And so that disproportionately affected the budget allocated to special education by the state. And so the state got alarmed, said, okay, what's going on here? And so that was what propelled an investigation to take place. If I could share some statistics with all of you, because this is not just a problem in California, as the newsreel indicated, this is a national problem, and where we find Black and brown children, in some cases indigenous children, other non-white children, being mislabeled as being, in need of special education. I would say that we need more intervention, and we need more intervention of our own when it comes down to education, more of our own that understands what we are experiencing in our communities, more of our own that understands us culturally. Let me run down these statistics real quick. Black children are 3 times as likely to live in poor families as white children in 2015, and that number has also is ever increasing. These are the type of factors that are causing distractions in education. If you're living in a poor condition, you can't really focus on your education. And likewise, it is disproportionately with Latino children and other non-white children. Likewise, you're dealing with diet factors. One other thing that is not always factored in is the improper diet that Black and brown children experience, especially among the poor. According to official statistics, food insecurity affects 23% of Black-headed households and 19% of Hispanic or Latino-headed households, compared to 9% of households headed up by whites. Black children, let me pull this up real quick. Black children are twice as likely to have elevated blood lead levels as whites, and low-income children over 3 times as likely as others. So these are some of the factors that Black and brown children are experiencing. The poor are also more likely to live near hazardous waste sites, which that not only affects us physically, but also mentally. And so there are other factors. Culturally, white teachers and administrators do not relate to Black and Latino children as well, and don't consider environmental factors. Also, the amount of problems that we experience in homes, the breakup of families, which has an effect on children. It has been found that oftentimes when white children experience problems in school, there's significant intervention in their education before grade 4. But when it comes down to Black and Latino children, there's typically no real intervention until 4th grade and above. By that time, it's already too late. And so now what educators need to do is work harder on those particular children. But oftentimes, those are the children that do not graduate with a regular diploma. White children that are labeled in elementary school, typically that are labeled as special education, they have more of a chance to graduate with a regular diploma, which you see the disparities. In truth, we need a new educational paradigm, as the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan has been teaching us. I can't hear you, dear sister. You're.
Yes, sir.
There you are.
Given the population of Black and Latino students in the Palo Alto district, what might account for their disproportionate composite rates in comparison with other ethnic and racial groups?
Well, with what you're asking, see, with Black children in that particular school district, they were just about 1.5%, but yet they accounted for right around 3% of all cases of children being placed into special education. With Latino children, it was, you have 15% of the population, but yet they accounted for about 26% of all cases of children being placed into special education. Do you see the great disproportionate numbers? I would say that it has largely to do with not relating to the cultures of these children, not taking the time to relate to them, not putting the proper people in place that care about these children and know about their culture and know exactly how to intervene into their lives. So really, the school district and these schools don't get a pass. They have access to resources. They know exactly what the problem of our children are. They just choose to just put a Band-Aid over the situation and just label them special education and let them sort it out themselves.
Sir, that is a choice that the schools are making. And how long has the displacement of Black and brown students been going on in schools across America?
See, I've spoken to a lot of elders during the time of the segregation era in this country, and both in Black and brown communities. And what has often been discussed is that whenever they encountered students that had problems, keeping up, or they had some kind of reading problem or something, there was always other students there that were working to help them catch up. And teachers cared a lot more at that time, particularly Black and brown teachers. They always went out of their way to make sure that all of their students learned. And as far as integration goes, we're finding more and more since the 1960s, children being placed into these special education programs, basically because they just see that as being a quick solution to finding little Jaime, he can't read, or little Shauna, she can't read. Well, let's go ahead and put them in special education. And of course, the school gets more funding for special education programs. So let's just keep them in there so that we could get more funding. And so it becomes a despicable way of handling the education of our children. It's also very racist and white supremacist, because under this kind of condition, you maintain a permanent underclass of children and people. And so what is needed is a new system in place. Really, parents and organizations needed to be taking charge. Black organizations, Latino organizations, we need to be taking charge of the education of our children and help steer them in another direction. We need more support systems for our children, and really connect parents to these systems that will help their children progress as they need to.
Yes, sir, that's very agreeable. And what percentage of these school fundings is allocated to disabled and special education students? And then what would be the impact on school funding if Black and brown students are reclassified?
No. Well, as I said, in this particular case, there was too much funding that the school district was asking for. It was over 10%. Like, okay, well, something is going on there, and that takes money away from all the other school districts when it comes down to special education budget. It's about 15% of all federal funding to the states, mandatory. It is to go to special education. And so when it comes down to the education of Black and Latino children, I have taught many children in foster care. I've taught many children in our communities through special programs. The resources are there. We just have to do the research and let people know that these resources are there to really intervene into the lives of our children.
Yes, sir. Thank you for that answer. And how do perceptions of Black and Hispanic students' academic, social, emotional, and behavioral abilities influence these disproportionate outcomes? And what roles does inferred white superiority play in the disproportionate classification of Black and brown students?
It plays a complete part, because white supremacy is not over. These type of attitudes, and oftentimes it could even be in a subtle way, like, oh, well, I don't know what to do with this, so let's just put them over here without any true intervention in the lives of children. I've sat into meetings in my 20 years plus of education. Now, what is oftentimes a quick solution is not just recommending, but telling parents straight out, oh, well, what we need to do is have them sit with psychologists, and they should see a doctor to start receiving some type of medication, because the child doesn't seem to stay focused in school. See, we're not looking at all the factors that these children are experiencing in their lives. We're just looking at the symptomatic behavior. But as educators, if we huddle up with parents and we find out what is going on in the lives of children and try to plug them in with resources, we need to become knowledgeable about the resources that these children have as an alternative to, there's so much medication of children taking place right now. Over close to 50% of the population is being medicated, and really unnecessarily medicated in most cases. And children in this era are falling into those kind of situations. Parents really need to do the research as to what kind of resources they have access to. We need to start really advocating for parents to get involved in the programs that will help them become better parents and hook them in with the resources that they need.
Yes, sir. And is there a plan to decrease the number of special education referrals?
Well, in Florida, they've implemented some programs to slow down the amount of labeling, if you will, when it comes down to special education. But that does not mean that intervention is not needed. We need more intervention and less labeling, because all these children, they're geniuses, and they're geniuses in their own way in many cases. And we just have to find out what their way is, what their purpose is, and direct them in the right way of life.
Yes, sir. Thank you so very much today for joining us, Brother Tony. Thank you for all of the valuable information that you shared. And earlier we did have some technical issues with Brother Charles, so we are going to bring him back on and finish his segment.
Yes, ma'am.
Be a part of the force that powers truth in journalism. Your support helps to combat false media. Cash App NNV News.
Asiatic Minds, online education, helping our children to discover their God-given skills, gifts, talents, and passion that will allow them to see their greatness as well as the greatness of our people. And upon discovering that greatness, infusing them with the desire to use it for the betterment of themselves, their families, our people, and the world. Classes begin September 1st. To enroll, visit AsiaticMinds.com.
This is Sister Sajda Muhammad. We are proud to announce that the Sajda House commemorative Elijah coins are finally here. This priceless heirloom, made from recycled copper from the messenger's home, is now available at sajdahouse.com.
Greetings from National Network View. This week's Final Call cover story headline is dedicated to a champion in the liberation struggle, as Africa and the Black world are honoring the late Kenneth Kaunda, a hero of the struggle to free the motherland, a longtime statesman and leader in efforts to move Africa forward. Zambia's founding president recently departed this life at age 97. This remembrance and tribute includes a special message by the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan regarding one of the giants of Africa. This FCN volume number 38 edition middle page article is entitled, "The Judgment of Allah Has Entered America." To read more, subscribe to finalcalldigital.com and tune into the all-new Final Call Radio. This is the NNVnews.com Final Call cover report.
Please make sure you leave your comments and questions in the comment section below. Follow us on Facebook, National Network View, and make sure to check us out on Twitter as well, National Network View. This is Sergio Gutierrez with National Network View, signing off.
And we are back with Brother Charles Muhammad to discuss what to a balanced diet and how to make healthy food choices. Welcome back, Brother Charles. Are you able to
Thank you, and I apologize for my poor Wi-Fi.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So we'll just jump right back in. What foods hit the recommended daily averages as a 1 meal regimen?
Well, we should follow the guidance of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. He spells it out in Book 1, page 27, where he says milk and bread, wheat bread, alone will keep us alive indefinitely, and it's the best and most easily digested foods. You can't get much better than that. We went into depth last week about wheat bread and whole pure milk and how it's nutritionally dense for us to hit all of the nutritional markers that are necessary. But in this society, we are being led to believe that low calorie foods, which are basically plant foods, can sustain us nutritionally and meet caloric intake markers. Now, for the women, you can average about 2,400 calories. And for the man, they want you to hit 3,000 calories. Well, try to do the math. If broccoli is 33 calories per 100 grams, you may have to eat 7 to 8 bushels of broccoli to try to hit those caloric markers. You get a lot of nutrients in it, but you will not be able to sustain a lot of your body weight with the protein and produce energy for the calories that are needed. And so when we try to look at highly nutritional, nutrient-dense foods, we are led to believe, once again, that plant foods will hit the mark for us. Like in this study that was done, they promote kale as a highly nutrient-dense food, but kale has really just 2 nutrients in it. That's vitamin K and iron. That's not nutrient-dense. Now, number 1 on the list is salmon, because salmon is a fatty fish. And then the other, when you go down the list, you get number 7, which is liver. Now, liver is very nutritionally dense. You know, it's and we're talking about cow liver, not human liver. So it produces its own nutrients and vitamins and steroids. So naturally, gravitate to for their nutritional needs.
Yes, sir. Thank you. And can you give us an example of how to balance these issues out?
Well, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, he doesn't really give us a meal in front of us that we can study, but he does say certain things that we have to pay attention to. Because on page 7 of book 1, he says office workers should not even eat baked beans, nor beans with rice and meat in them, because their jobs do not permit them enough activity to digest such heavy foods. So when you try to engage in heavy foods such as these, you have to match it with activity. Because if you have a sedentary occupation when you're sitting at a desk like me, and you try to eat high protein, high fat foods, you're going to start to grow horizontally instead of nutritionally. So we need to get away from the standard American diet, which is rich in plant foods, but they're fattening foods. And we really need to cook at home and cook whole foods. So that is the recommendation on how to supply the body with proper foods. But then now when you have those foods, you got to match it with an activity. There are programs and there are charts that can help you calculate your caloric your activity to match your caloric intake. Now, you don't have to do boxing or running a lot, but you try to remain active to burn off the amount of calories that you're taking in.
Yes, sir. And what does How to Eat to Live say about weight gain or growing horizontally?
Well, yes, ma'am. Like I said before, the Honorable Muhammad has a unique way of giving us an image of what he's dealing with, and we have to parse his words along with his top student, the Honorable Mr. Farrakhan. He says on page 26 of book 1, the slave masters taught us to eat rough foods such as field peas, and today, being accustomed to eating them, we still eat them along with sweet potatoes, which are not good for anyone but hogs, and white potatoes, which, since they are so starchy and fattening. So these are vegetables, once again, the white potato and the sweet potato and field peas. And that would include the other beans he discussed in How to Eat to Live. Then when you eat a whole assortment of them to try to get a lot of protein, they have nutrients in them. Excess becomes fattening and the body converts it into fat. And then you will begin to gain weight. So the calculation here is high food density or highly nutritious foods, because you can eat the same amount of food, like it's here with the broccoli and a small 1 ounce cup of potato chips, same amount of size, but the calories are different and the nutrition is different. So we have to follow the guidance of the Elijah Muhammad to not eat empty calories that will be converted into fat, and we will begin to grow horizontally, as you stated.
Right, yes, sir. And why, with all this health information out here, why are our healthy choices not working?
Well, it is a, a breakdown, like I said, in understanding how foods contain certain vitamins and nutrients, and then are also packed with protein. So there are macronutrients and micronutrients. Micronutrients are the vitamins and minerals that are in mainly a lot of plant foods. And then the macronutrients are the animal-based foods, right, that provides the fats, the carbohydrates, and the proteins. So when we want to balance this, we have to understand that we are making better choices based on eating one meal a day, and we have to lean towards maybe eating some organ meats from time to time. I know, talking to Muslim followers in Elijah Muhammad and Mr. Farrakhan, eating meat is what they call not haram, impure. But we have to understand this is science, and we are consumers. And when in biology, consumers get their energy from eating other organisms. We're not looking to get our energy, the ATP, from other organisms. We just want protein, all right, and certain nutrients to help sustain our bodily functions.
Yes, sir. I'm actually a vegetarian myself, occasionally a pescatarian, so this is a very interesting conversation for me. But what would you say to those that strongly argue against any type of animal products?
Well, yes, you cannot argue with history. Now, the Elijah Muhammad does say, do not be a meat consumer. And what we just went over, a consumer eats other animals for energy. So we're not looking to gain our energy from animal products. But there's a doctor, he's no longer alive, named Dr. Weston A. Price. He was a dentist, ironically. And he traveled the whole entire world and studied what other people, other cultures ate, and particularly their traditional diets. And he wrote a book called Nutrition and Physical Degeneration. And he studied their teeth and their facial structure. And he said that when they ate a certain diet, they were very healthy. But when they got to eating more refined foods and Western foods, they had bad dental health, and their faces began to narrow out, and said their jawlines were very narrow. Now, here you see in these slides, you have the traditional diet where their faces are round and shiny and their teeth are straight. And then when they have the modern diet where European explorers would come and visit them, and they would bring candy and refined breads and sweets, and they began to eat that, and it began to give them cavities in their teeth, and their teeth began to fall out. You cannot go against history. And these are people who ate a lot of organ meats. They ate a lot of fish. They were also pastoral, where they had cows and bison and yak milk for them. They ate animal products. So that's the history of people all around the world. So moving into this refined grain and sugar-based diet, the SAD diet, Standard American Diet, there's a big collision going on where we have to be precise in our diet. We can balance it with the right breads and still eat meat at a small proportion, as Elijah Muhammad taught us. He said, eat it once or twice a week, so it won't be harmful for you. And then we will begin to reap the rewards of better health and slowly but surely reduce meat out of our diet altogether. We just maintain with the milk.
Yes, sir. This is such an interesting discussion. I love it. For it. What we eat and what we consume is definitely science, and we need to make sure that we're all educated on what we are intaking into our bodies. And thank you so much again for joining us, even after we were having some technical difficulties earlier. And thank you all for joining us today and tuning into National Network View. Please share your thoughts with us in the comment section below. Follow us on social media at NNV News, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel, NNV News. This is Nyah Tsai with National Network View.
Be a part of the force that powers truth in journalism. Go to nnvnews.com/donate.